My daughter-in-law hid my glasses. Maybe this will teach you to be more organized, she said. What she didn't know was that I didn't need the glasses to dial my lawyer's number, which I knew by heart. I told him to start the eviction process and to deliver the notice to her personally during our usual family dinner at 7 p.m. Her petty cruelty was the final move in a game she didn't know she was about to lose spectacularly. Thanks once again for being here, guys. I'm glad that you made time to watch my story. I appreciate it that you continue to express your views on the stories and your suggestions for improvement. I also want to take this opportunity to apologize to all you viewers that complained of an effect I used in an earlier video, triggering nausea or vertigo in you. I'm really sorry for that. In the meantime, keep watching and discover the moment when a single, legally binding envelope demolishes her world in front of the one person she thought would always protect her. The world had become a smear of watercolor shapes, a frustrating distortion I was forced to navigate. My glasses were gone. Again. I knew exactly where they should have been, on the small, antique table beside my reading chair, where I left them every single night. I ran my hands over the smooth wood, my fingers searching for the familiar wireframes. Nothing. A cold, diamond-hard fury settled in my chest, a feeling that had become terrifyingly familiar over the last 4 months. From the kitchen, I heard the clink of a mug, and then Charlotte's voice, bright and sharp as shattered glass. "Looking for something, Helen?" I didn't grace her with a turn of my head. "You know what I'm looking for, Charlotte." She appeared in the doorway of the living room, a hazy silhouette holding a cup of coffee. "Oh, your glasses?" "Saw them. Somewhere." "You really should be more careful, Helen. At your age, tripping is so dangerous. Maybe this will teach you to be more organized." The faux concern was a thin veil over the condescension, an oily film that coated the air between us. "Where did you put them?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "Oh, somewhere safe," she chirped, taking a sip of her coffee. "You'll find them if you look hard enough. Think of it as a little memory game." That was it. That was the moment the dam of my patience, eroded by months of insidious aggression and calculated disrespect, finally crumbled. It wasn't about the glasses. It was about the slow, deliberate campaign to render me a confused, incompetent old woman in my own home. My son, Logan, her husband, was 6,000 miles away, on a 6-month engineering contract in Singapore, a brilliant opportunity he couldn't refuse. It had been his idea for Charlotte to stay with me. The apartment they shared was being renovated while he was away, and he'd painted it as a perfect solution. "You'll have each other for company. It'll be great," he had said, his voice full of the earnest, naive optimism I so loved in him. He had no idea he was caging me with a viper. The first month had been a masterclass in subtle warfare. She would helpfully rearrange my kitchen, leaving me unable to find my favorite pan, then sigh. "Oh dear, did you forget where I put it for you?" She'd buy organic, gluten-free groceries I couldn't eat, subtly implying my preferences were unhealthy, and then sigh with theatrical pity when I made my own simple meals. She referred to my late husband's cherished furniture, the pieces that held the shape of our 50 years together, as clutter and depressingly dated, suggesting they belonged in storage or charity. Each comment was a small pinprick, insignificant on its own, but together they were bleeding me dry of my peace. I had tried to tell Logan during our weekly video calls, but the words felt clumsy and petty. Charlotte moved the teapot. Charlotte said my roses were garish. He would listen, his brow furrowing slightly, but then he'd try to mediate. "Maybe she was just trying to help, Mom. She means well." How could I explain the malicious intent behind such trivial acts? He would hear the complaint of a lonely old woman, not the desperate report of a prisoner of psychological war. Charlotte knew this. She counted on it. She'd even accidentally disconnected the internet on a few occasions, just before his calls, leaving me scrambling and flustered. The rearranged medications had been the chilling turning point 3 weeks ago. Not just moved, but a different pill bottle, clearly not mine, left on my nightstand. a clear escalation that had jolted me from passive endurance to active vigilance. I had immediately called Marcus then, my voice carefully calm, explaining only that I needed to understand my rights as a homeowner regarding a guest. He had patiently walked me through the process of serving a notice to quit to a tenant at will. He had even drafted the initial paperwork then, advising me to hold on to it, hoping the situation would de-escalate. He understood that sometimes just knowing you have the power is enough. But Charlotte had pushed. Today, with the glasses, she'd pushed too far. But she had made a critical miscalculation. She assumed my world was small. She assumed her control over the house extended to control over me. I turned away from her smug silhouette and walked, my hand trailing along the wall for guidance, to the study. I didn't need my glasses for this. I knew my own home by touch, a map etched into my muscles. I closed the heavy oak door, the click of the latch, a sound of finality. I sat down at my husband's old desk and picked up the phone. My fingers found the numbers on the keypad without hesitation. The number was as familiar to me as my own name. It was the number for Marcus Sutton, the lawyer who had handled my husband's estate, a man of quiet integrity who had known me for 30 years. His secretary put me right through. "Helen," Marcus's voice was warm, concerned. "Is everything all right? Logan mentioned a few adjustments at the house." "Everything is about to be, Marcus," I said, the fury in my chest now cooled into a weapon. "I need you to activate the notice to quit we discussed, and I need you to deliver it tonight. In person." There was a brief silence. He understood immediately. He had heard the tension in my voice during our last few calls, though I had always downplayed it. "The tenant's name?" he asked, his own voice now taking on a professional edge. "Charlotte Devereaux," I said. "My daughter-in-law." I could hear the faint scratching of his pen. Understood. "Standard 30 days to vacate?" "That is the legal requirement, yes," I confirmed. "But it is the delivery of the notice that I have a special instruction for. Tonight is our weekly family dinner. Logan calls on video from Singapore. I want you to deliver the notice in person at 7 o'clock sharp. I want you to hand it to her at the dinner table." Another pause, longer this time. I knew what I was asking. It was theatrical, aggressive. It was not my usual style. "Helen," he said carefully, "that is highly unorthodox. It could be perceived as inflammatory. It risks creating a volatile situation." "Marcus," I said, my voice unwavering. "For 4 months, I have been subjected to a campaign of psychological warfare designed to make me feel helpless and senile in the house my husband and I built together. I have kept a detailed journal. I have documented every incident, from the lost keys to the rearranged medications, the subtle insults, and today's final act. My glasses, hidden and then openly mocked. This is not an act of anger. It is an act of survival. I need a witness to her reaction, one who cannot be swayed. I need this to happen in a way that cannot be twisted or denied or lied about later. I need my son to see her true colors, unequivocally." He let out a long, slow breath. He knew my husband, Robert. He knew Robert would never have stood for anyone treating me this way. And he recognized the cold, rational resolve in my voice. The potential for a documented pattern of harassment strengthened my position. "I will be there at 7, he said, the loyalty in his voice a balm on my frayed nerves. "And Helen, I'll bring an extra copy for your son's records, and a draft affidavit of my observations tonight, which we can formalize tomorrow with a notary." The rest of the day, I moved with a strange sense of calm. I eventually found my glasses in the freezer, tucked inside a box of frozen peas, a detail so absurdly cruel it solidified my resolve. I cooked the dinner Charlotte had requested, a complicated chicken dish that required 3 separate pans. I set the table with the good silver and the crystal glasses she always insisted on using. I was creating the perfect stage for her downfall, using the very props of her supposed sophistication. At 6:45, my laptop was open on the sideboard. Logan's cheerful face already on the screen, his voice tinny but clear. "Hey, Mom! Hey, Charlotte! Smells amazing, even from here. Charlotte, dressed in a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly utilities, preened for the camera. Hello, darling. Your mother made your favorite. We miss you terribly. She shot me a triumphant little smile, the victor in our silent war. She believed she had won the day. The doorbell rang at precisely 7 o'clock. Charlotte frowned. Are we expecting someone? I am, I said, my heart a steady, heavy drum. I went to the door and opened it to find Marcus Sutton standing on my porch. He was tall and impeccably dressed in a dark suit, holding a crisp leather folio. He looked less like a suburban lawyer and more like an executioner of fate. Marcus, I said calmly, thank you for coming. Please, come in. I led him into the dining room. Charlotte's eyes widened, first in confusion, then in alarm as she recognized him from the photos in my husband's study. Logan's face on the screen was a mask of puzzlement. Mom? What's going on? Who is that? Marcus walked directly to the dining table and stopped beside Charlotte's chair. He did not acknowledge her beyond a slight, professional nod. He addressed me. Helen, as per your instructions. He opened the folio and pulled out a single, thick sheet of paper. He placed it on the table directly in front of Charlotte's plate. Miss Devereaux, he said, his voice resonant and clear, filling the suddenly silent room. You are hereby served with a formal notice to quit. Pursuant to state law, as a tenant at will with no formal lease agreement, you are required to vacate these premises within 30 calendar days of the date of this notice. Charlotte stared at the paper as if it were a declaration of war. Her face went from pale to a blotchy, furious red. What is this? What is this nonsense? She sputtered, her voice rising to a shrill screech. Logan, your mother has lost her mind. She's kicking me out. From the laptop, Logan's frantic voice cut in. Mom, what are you doing? Mr. Sutton, what is this about? I looked at my son's panicked face on the screen. Logan, I said, my voice clear and strong. For the last 4 months, your wife has engaged in a consistent and cruel effort to undermine my peace and my stability in my own home. Today, she hid my glasses in the freezer and told me it was a game to help my memory. This is not a sudden decision. This is a final one. My detailed journal, which I will share with you, documents the escalating pattern of her behavior. This includes her attempts to control my medications, her deliberate misplacing of my personal items, and her constant undermining of my independence. This has become an untenable living situation. Marcus, ever the thorough professional, added, For the record, Logan, a copy of this notice, along with Helen's journal entries and my draft affidavit detailing the events leading to this action and my own observations from tonight, will be forwarded to you tomorrow morning. This action is entirely within your mother's legal rights as the homeowner. Charlotte's composure shattered completely. The elegant, sophisticated mask fell away, revealing the snarling, desperate person beneath. She's a liar! She shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. She's an old, lonely woman making things up for attention. You can't do this to me. This is my home. No, I said, the word cutting through her hysteria. It is my home. You have been a guest here, a guest who has forgotten her manners. The law, as Mr. Sutton has just clarified, is very clear on that. Your position here is at will, not by right. She turned her desperate eyes to the laptop. Logan, tell her she can't do this. You have to do something. Logan's face was a wreck of emotions. Shock, disbelief, and the slow, dawning horror of a man realizing he had been willfully blind. He remembered my quiet complaints, the ones he had dismissed as trivial, and they were now slotting into place, forming a picture of unbearable clarity. He was seeing his wife, truly seeing her for the first time. The shrill, entitled stranger on the screen was not the charming, capable woman he thought he knew. He looked from his wife's frantic face to my own calm, resolute one. He saw the truth, and the chilling implication of how much her behavior could damage his relationship with his mother and his own reputation. His voice, when it finally came, was hollow. "Charlotte, what did you do?" It was not an accusation. It was a plea for her to deny it, to make it untrue. But her guilt was written all over her face. She had no answer. There was a long, terrible silence broken only by Charlotte's ragged breathing. Logan stared at her, his expression hardening from confusion into a cold, profound disappointment. I have to go," he stammered, his hand reaching up to end the call. His face vanished from the screen, plunging the room into an even deeper silence. The game was over. Her protector, compromised by undeniable truth, was gone. Charlotte finally snapped. She lunged forward, her hand slamming onto the table, sending the notice to quit fluttering to the floor. "You think this changes anything?" she snarled, her eyes blazing with raw fury. "You think you've won? You're just a pathetic old woman, Helen, and Logan will see that. He'll come back to me." I met her gaze, unflinching. "He just saw exactly who you are, Charlotte, and he's a good man. He won't stand for cruelty." I watched as a flicker of doubt, then genuine fear, crossed her face. The bravado was a flimsy shield, already cracking. Marcus gave me a small, supportive nod, closed his folio, and saw himself out. I looked at the beautiful meal growing cold on the table, a feast for a celebration that had become a funeral. Charlotte, still fuming, began gathering her things with frantic, jerky movements. Her silk blouse seemed less elegant, more like a costume. The carefully curated image had shattered, leaving only desperation. The next morning, the apartment felt different. Lighter. Charlotte was gone by sunrise, taking a few overflowing suitcases and leaving behind a chaotic trail of resentment. The silence was no longer a weapon used against me, but a soothing balm. The days that followed were a haze of practicalities. Marcus's office sent Logan the detailed documentation. Logan, true to his character, had a difficult conversation with Charlotte, the details of which I only gleaned in fragments. He called me every day, his voice thick with apologies and a genuine desire to understand. He came home from Singapore 2 weeks early, citing an urgent family matter to his company. He arrived looking drawn, his optimism muted, but there was a new clarity in his eyes. He hugged me tightly, a long, wordless embrace that spoke volumes. He spent hours poring over my journal, his face a grim mask as he absorbed the full extent of Charlotte's calculated cruelty. He saw the systematic breakdown, the fear she had tried to instill. He didn't just understand, he felt it. Logan insisted on helping me put the house back in order, physically and emotionally. He moved furniture back to its familiar places, meticulously organized my spice rack, and even took the time to sort through my medications, ensuring everything was correct and safe. He cooked for me, simple, comforting meals, and we talked for hours. He confessed his shame, his regret for not seeing it sooner. I reassured him, reminding him that love can sometimes blind us, and that Charlotte had been a master manipulator. The house slowly began to breathe again, exhaling the tension of the past 4 months. The air felt cleaner, the light brighter. Logan's presence was not a burden, but a healing balm. He made arrangements to sell the apartment he shared with Charlotte, a stark signal of the finality of their separation. He often just sat with me, sometimes reading, sometimes just in comfortable silence, a quiet act of companionship that mended something deep within me. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Logan found me in my reading chair, my real glasses perched comfortably on my nose. He handed me a cup of tea, just the way I liked it. "Mom," he said softly, "I'm so sorry for everything. For not seeing it, for putting you through that." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "You're here now, Logan. That's all that matters." He nodded, a hint of his old, earnest self returning to his eyes. I think I'm going to stay for a while, not just until my contract ends. I want to be here. For you, and I think I need to figure things out for myself, too." I smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile that reached my eyes. The war was over. The peace had been reclaimed. And my son, truly seeing, truly understanding, was finally home. The quiet, rhythmic sound of us, simply existing together, was the only sound in the house. It was the sound of my life, rebuilt and reclaimed, one precious moment at a time.